Hi, I'm Neil Van, and this is my friend David Patino. David is a commercial photographer in New Jersey, and he does a fair amount of what do you do?
Fair amount of product now.
And what else?
Lots of portraiture, usually commercial and advertising. So lots of people, but a lot of product now too.
So for the two perspectives thing today, we are going to do product photography. We each chose a product, and we're going to photograph both products, or I'm going to photograph both products here in my studio. And then we're going to head over to David's studio, and David's going to create some kind of magic there. Let's see what we come up with. The first product that I decided on is this cute little clock, sort of a half wannabe Art Deco-ish clock. The metal surfaces are distressed, so that's not really a problem, and that'll be very reflective. But this convex glass front is going to offer problems, so we'll have to work around it. Now, the first lighting setup, I just kind of sandwich it with these two soft boxes, flood the table with light. From experience, I know that the problem I encounter with a white table with reflective objects is the table itself is reflected in half of the object. Let's see what we get. Yeah, we get reflections of this softbox, that softbox in the glass front. But for me, the problem is that half the glass front is, you see the reflection of the table, and the top half is darker. And then this front of the clock is recessed, so it's not getting any light from the softboxes. I'm going to swing the softbox around, see if we can get some light on there. And immediately I see the reflection of the softbox in there, so I'm not even going to attempt it. Okay, so finally this looks good. We get no reflections. If I zoom in, I don't really see the camera because the metal front of the clock doesn't really reflect anything. So we're good. On close inspection we might see it, but I would like to get a side view of the clock. So I'm going to move it to the side. This really should be on a tripod. There we go. Okay, I can see the camera's reflection, a little black dot in the clock face, in the reflective part in the glass. So I'm going to turn the clock a little bit more so I avoid it. Now it'll be an easy fix in post-production to see if we can avoid it here. There we go. And at this angle, it's good, it's clean. I just neatly avoided seeing my own reflection, this little hole in the glass. So this looks good, I can live with this. Now I do get the back end, the back portion of the tent in the photograph, but it'll be easy cleanup. As long as the clock itself, the reflective part, the glass, looks clean, I'm good. On to the next product. David's choice was this, depending on where you are in the world, it's either a torchlight or a flashlight. What do we call it in America? Flashlight?
Flashlight.
Flashlight. Okay, this flashlight, it is black. Slight bit of sheen, that's going to be interesting. We'll probably get that a bit of a highlight, and then we have the front. Maybe a deceptively simple object to photograph. Let's see what we come up with. The simplest default way of shooting this is white table, two lights. Gonna plonk it down. How much of the face do we want to see, David?
I think we want to show off that it's a flashlight.
Okay. We go mega depth of field. Ah, there we go, done. That looks good.
It's perfect.
We get a bit of a sheen. That I like it.
Yeah. Client wanted it on black though.
Oh crap. Black perspex. I'm a little out of my element right now. But we'll go to the default and we build it up from there. But I see a lot of dust. That's going to be hell to retouch. I'm going to go get a cloth. Okay, let's see how much of this crud we can pick up with a microfiber cloth. Of course, we don't want to scratch this because then we just compound our problem. I'm sure this is the laziest way of shooting it, but I think it looks good.
It looks beautiful.
I think we're done. I think I'm done. Let's see what David comes up with. We'll go over to his studio and we'll meet up with you there.
All right, so welcome to my studio. Normally my go-to for something like this would be to tent it with a giant cone made out of diffusion fabric. But since Neil stole my idea, I'll come up with a new plan. So one of the big pitfalls that you had was that you kept seeing the table reflection and everything in front of it because of this convex glass. So I'm going to take the table out of the equation and we're going to float this thing in midair basically on this piece of plexiglass here. And what will happen is where the camera's angled, we'll just see the background, which will turn pure white, and the plexi will disappear, and we should have no reflections.
Nice. So
providing we angle this right.
you've got the lights in the background, you'll blow out the background?
Yeah, we'll just blow out the background.
And the lights you're going to set up?
Lights we're going to set up. I'm going to keep the same angle you had so that they kind of match with each other here. So we're going to be skewed just camera right a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do is put a softbox here, probably with a big piece of diffusion. See how that looks, and then we'll probably do another softbox somewhere over there where you are to fill in, and then we'll throw on the backlight, and hopefully it works out.
Sounds like it would work.
Cool. You want to help me out?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Cool. So I'm just checking through the viewfinder to see exactly where the reflections are in the glass, and I want to make sure that all we can see is this scrim here and none of the floor or the table or the camera or everything. So I think we've got enough fabric that we're covering everything that looks good, so we can pop our light in and take our first frame.
You know that I'm going to steal this idea as well.
That's okay.
Okay.
Because as long as we're not doing another video. All right, so I'm actually just going to use a small softbox here because I have this giant 6-foot scrim in front of it that's going to diffuse the light even more. I know where my clock is kind of through there, and what I'm going to do is just angle this light so it's facing forward because I'm going to create a nice gradient across the front of the clock so it looks nice and shiny and metallic. Cool, so I think that light's pretty good where it is. We're going to take a test shot here. Cool, and that looks pretty good. It's a little hot on the top. I'll probably pull that light back a tiny bit, but yeah, I think we're in good position. All right, so let's bring this fill light in. And I'm gonna also put this one about 45 degrees kind of behind the product. Cool. I'll turn this on. And let's take a test here. Cool, looks pretty good. I can see a reflection of the softbox though up top. So what I'm gonna do is bring in another piece of diffusion, and that should kind of do what it did on the other side and give us a nice creamy feel. We won't see any of the softbox back there. Good, another test shot. Nice, just kind of smooths out the gradient on that side. Great. All right, so we've got our main light, we've got our fill light. The last light we got to turn on is our background light. We've got that worked out. Let's come over here and take a frame. Great, looks good. We've got pure white all the way through. Let's see, good. So the last thing we're gonna do now is, because this image is, or because this product rather, is a little bit deep for the f-stop that we're at, I'm gonna go ahead and focus stack this. So we're gonna take a series of images with the front part in focus and all the way through to the back. And then we're gonna send them to a piece of software called Helicon Focus, and that will line everything up, and we'll end up with one image that's tack sharp from front to back. Great. So we're just going to enter focus stacking mode on the camera here. And that's set. And now we can move over to laptop and set our points. Okay, so I've just opened up live view in Capture One. I'm just going to zoom in on the closest portion of the clock to the camera, which is what I've been focusing on already. So that's already in focus. And I just told the camera that that's our closest point. And I'm going to go to our furthest point away from the lens now. And from the computer here, I can focus the camera. That looks great. Just told the camera that that's our furthest point. I'm going to close this window, and we're going to hit one button, and it's going to go ahead and take a succession of pictures. It knows how many to make it in focus from front to back. So it's going to take 10 shots. Here we go. Great, so all 10 of our shots are loaded into Capture One. Capture One has also tagged these with a sequence number, so I know that these 10 shots go together as a focus stack. I can export them to Helicon Focus. Helicon will slap them all together, and we'll end up with a beautiful JPEG that we can bring into Photoshop and retouch from there. So 90% of the time I'm shooting tethered into the laptop. I don't actually stand there and look through the camera. Like you saw, I set my focus from there, I stop and start the camera. A lot of time I'm standing over at the screen with the client or whoever else is here, and we're reviewing kind of what's happening and making sure that everything looks perfect. Way larger than life, larger than anybody will ever see it.
This is massively impressive.
Yeah, because usually this picture will end up on Instagram this big and nobody will ever look at it.
Fair enough. Okay, so tell us more about the lighting setup, the way you have the softbox and the scrum.
Yeah, so the main light that I started off with was the small softbox through the scrim, which is on the right-hand side here. And what I really want to do, because this is glossy metal, I wanted to create this really soft gradient that fell across the front so that you could see that it's actually glossy metal. If I had shot it with just the light straight onto it, it would have all been the same color of gray or white or whatever. Yeah, a lot more flat. And so this way we kind of get, it's real subtle, but you just see that there's some edges to it. You see there's some highlights in here. And then the fill light through the other side just kind of creates this whole gradient here to kind of show us again that the clock is that deep and it's still made of the same material and everything's shiny and beautiful and you want to buy it, because the whole point of these types of pictures is getting
people to buy
it. So,
because there's definitely a depth here that I like.
Yeah, it's cool, and minimal retouching on the back end. There's really, I'll probably pull a little bit of this and smooth it out. There's a tiny little reflection here of the edge of the plexiglass, but other than that, it's sitting on 255 white, so it's kind of good to go.
But your lighting setup is very impressive because, like you said, there's minimal retouching needed on this.
Yeah.
It looks really good.
Thanks. Onto the flashlight. Unfortunately, I'm going second again, and that means that Neil stole my idea because black plexi is usually my go-to for that. So I'm going to give you something else, though. This is going to be a good one. I'm going to try to do the whole thing with one light. I'm going to try to do it as fast as Neil did, but it might take me a little bit longer. So we're going to use the, what is this, 3x4 softbox, or 2x4, 2x3, something like that, medium-sized softbox. It's got to be on black. So we're going to run this black piece of foam core. We're going to float it right in the middle here. We're going to fly the flashlight on some fishing line up front. And what should happen is all of this big, beautiful light should come around the foam core, wrap over the sides of the flashlight, and give us a really tasty, sexy looking image. Good. Just want to get this kind of centered in the softbox so the light all wraps evenly. Like that, and then we can float our flashlight in front. Neil, would you mind helping me? Cool. And you can let that fall a little bit. Good, right about there. Hold that flashlight right there. Perfect. Yeah, we'll trim all that up. Doesn't have to be pretty now, it just has to be pretty in the end. So the fishing line gives us just enough to hang the flashlight on, and it'll be a really quick and easy retouch in Photoshop after the fact. So good little trick. All right, so we've got a test shot. It looks pretty good right now. The only thing is that we're firing this softbox directly into the lens of camera, so there is going to be some flare. Now this looks pretty good right now, but I guarantee you there's some flare. So what we're gonna do is take this piece of foam core that has a notch cut out, and we're gonna put it in between the camera and the flashlight here, and this should suck up any of that glare that's coming back in. Happens to be black on one side, white on the other. I'm gonna use the black side facing the flashlight so that it sucks up all of that light. Good, and we'll take a test shot. And there you go, we've actually lost a whole ton of that glare that was happening on the bottom of the image. So I'm happy where this image is right now. It's moody, it's got a real sexy rim light on it, but we don't know that it's a flashlight yet, and what I need to happen is I need to see the glow from the actual head of the light. So we're gonna power on the light, and we're gonna try to balance out the ambient with the flash that we have, and so we're gonna drag the shutter. It's gonna take a few shots, but we'll make it happen. All right, so we've got our shutter speed pretty much dialed in. What we can't do is have any of the lights on because we're gonna drag the shutter for just about, I think, a half a second on this. So if you wouldn't mind killing the lights real quick. Great, and we'll take our test. Cool, and now we can see that the light is on. We see the head of the light. The only other thing is I really wanna see the beam of light as it's coming out. And so to do that, I'm gonna use a little bit of this aerosol atmosphere. It's kind of like a haze machine in a can. And if we just spray a little bit, we'll let that settle in for a second. Give a little bit more. Cool, and we'll take a shot there. Nice. Overdid it, of course. Let's do one more. Cool. We can really see that beam of light coming out though. And so probably what we'll do is end up kind of compositing the beam of light with the rest of the flashlight so we can pick the best one. I'll take a bunch of shots of just the atmosphere in the air, and then we can kind of put them all together in Photoshop. So we're going to focus stack this image again to make sure that we get the front part of the flashlight all the way through to the back part of the flashlight in focus. And just like we did on the last image. And what I didn't mention is that we're shooting a medium format camera here, and we're shooting it with a relatively long lens. It's a 150 millimeter lens. Even at f9 where we're at right now, our depth of field is minuscule compared to 35 millimeter or other formats. And so we really need to kind of stack these images in a row to get all of that, 6 inches into focus. I could take this lens and run it at f22, and I could gain a little more depth of field out of it, but you'll start to see some diffraction depending on where this image ends up getting used. you might end up seeing it in the print or whatever version it comes out. So I'm going to keep this lens at f9. We're going to go ahead and stack it. This camera makes it really easy to do that since it's all automated. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up now.
David, thank you again for inviting us to your studio. It's a really unique space. I mean, there's a pink Cadillac, half a Cadillac in the bar here.
Yeah.
And 2 floors of studio space. Anyway, thank you for inviting us. It was fascinating watching your thought process, the way you set things up and step by step built it up. Really interesting to watch that. And interesting notice how I messed up by not switching the flashlight on.
It's cool.
That was embarrassing.
It's cool.
Sorry. Sorry, people.
Well, thanks for having me. It was good. I love seeing how other people work and how they approach situations and how they think differently than I do. And it helps me to kind of think ahead and do things in the future. So even if they don't turn the flashlight on.
And also not have people steal your ideas.
That too.
Yeah, don't invite us again. Okay, see you next time.